You're listening to the Patient Experience Blueprint with Intibio.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Patient Experience Blueprint. I'm your host, Joshua DeVries. I'm super excited to introduce our guest today. Today, we have Laura Nelson joining us. She is the VP of AI Training and Development at Mango Voice. She's also the founder of Front Office Rocks, a virtual training program with over 500 courses for dental teams. She has over 20 years in the dental experience, starting her career as a front desk office manager. She built and managed a $2 million practice, has mentored thousands of dental professionals. Laura holds a master's degree in organizational development and is the author of 4 books, including Brush Up on AI, Step Away from the Drill, and Hiring Without Hesitation. She specializes in training in dental teams on communication, systems, leadership, practical AI adoption to improve practice workflows and patient experiences. That is a mouthful, but a huge and awesome experience and career you've had in dentistry. So super excited to have Laura on. Thank you for being on today, Laura. Just for our listeners, going over some of the things that you can learn today is first and foremost, practical tips on AI adoption for dental teams, helping skeptical staff embrace AI tools and navigating the workflow changes that come with implementation. We also are going to talk a little about building rockstar front desk teams through communication habits that turn into tough moments like upset patients and scheduling conflicts into referrals and lifelong relationships. The front office staff is a revenue driver, measuring what matters the most at the front desk and designing systems that convert inquiries into long-term patients. So that's definitely a lot of exciting things to chat through. But maybe for our listeners, Laura, you could start off and share a little bit about how you bridge that front desk experience and AI strategy the way you are. And what should our listeners know about you and what you're doing with your work right now?
Well, awesome. Thanks for having me. That was a mouthful there. It's funny when I hear my background now, I'm like, wow, I've been doing this way too long, apparently. No, I'm just kidding. So I've been teaching, like you said, I've been teaching teams for a very long time. And one of the things I've been teaching is customer service and systems. So I believe every practice has issues around backdoor problems, meaning we're losing patients out of our back door, and there's never enough time to get anything done. And so I've been teaching for years how to give great, amazing customer service to our patients so that they don't leave and go somewhere else, and also how to make our systems more efficient. And I've been loving this, but one of the things is the reality is in a dental office, there's still just not enough time. There's just always, the schedule runs us. There's just always stuff. We're always putting out fires. And so the more we teach the systems and customer service, the better it is. But we couldn't really address the time issue until AI became a thing. And AI really is the secret sauce that I didn't realize was going to happen in my lifetime, but I'm super excited to still be involved in our industry to be able to show how AI now is going to give us back the time that we've never had in the dental office to allow us to have more time to run the systems and to give good customer service. So it's really a good marriage for me of bringing technology to the humans and then really helping them to integrate it better in the practice so that we can do the things that only humans should be doing for our patients, which is where we are and where I am right now with everything that we're speaking on.
Yeah, I always tell people it's such an exciting time in dentistry. I feel like in the 15 years I've been here, we've really tried to take advantage of the internet, take advantage of social media, take advantage of some of these newer technologies. And I feel like dentistry, generally speaking, has been slow to adapt some of these changes. And I really believe with AI, we have the opportunity as, partners in this industry to deliver this new technology in a quick and streamlined and really practical use case. So maybe you could share a little about like how practices are actually jumping on AI to solve things. And really, what's that first step look like? Is it too early for some practices, or is this something that everyone should be considering?
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. I mean, dentistry has, I felt, have always been behind the times when it comes to technology. I mean, we still use fax machines. Like what other industry uses fax machines, right? But the thing is with AI, where there's a lot of dentists and office managers who are like, well, I'm just going to wait to see if this is going to stick, if this is the real thing. AI is moving faster than any other technology we've seen. So where Like, for example, we talked about being paperless in the dental office for like 10 years. I mean, get
Hmm.
chartless, right? It took forever for us to do it. AI is not like that. So what we're talking about now in 6 months from now is going to be, it's going to evolve so fast, right? So the one thing that my hope is anybody listen to this, if you're one of the people who are like, well, I don't know how I feel about AI. I don't want AI in my practice. I don't, to at least open up your mindset in your ideas to like it's here. It's been here. I mean, AI is a catchy word right now. It's technology. I mean, they've been developing AI since the 50s. So it's not new. It's just new to us. So that would be my first thing is to you're not if you talk to your phone and call it by name, I'm not saying her name, and she answers you, you're using AI. If you used a map on your phone, you're using AI. If you go on Google search now at the top and it summarizes an answer to your question, you're using AI. AI is already here. In the dental office specifically, I think that there's kind of a couple issues going on. There's a lot of companies trying to come into our industry saying they have the next best, great, amazing AI tool. And maybe what they have is good, but the problem and the issue I have is they don't know dental offices. So a lot of these companies coming in don't know they have a solution to something, but it's not necessarily going to solve the problem that we need solved in the office. So a lot of these companies don't have the dental wisdom that we need. And then the second thing is we don't need to plug technology into everything. What we need to do, and what I advise dentists and teams to do, is let's figure out where we're dropping the ball currently. Where are we missing things? Are we not answering the phones? Are we not sending emails to our patients? Are we not returning calls to our patients? Are we missing with treatment plan presentations? Like, where are you missing things right now? And then is there an AI solution that we can plug in that can help us with that thing, so that problem? Now, some AI is ready, some AI is not ready. There's a lot of solutions there. I mean, all our companies we're working with are working on AI solutions, but some of it's very early or not ready, but some of it's ready right now. And some of it, you don't even have to pay for it. Like some of it is like ChatGPT. Like I can give you 20 things right now that you can use ChatGPT for that's free that you can use in your practice to give your team more efficiency in their day. Other things are things like, Mango has Margo who answers the phone. That's the AI agent. You would pay for that, right? There's AI for radiographs. There's so many AI solutions coming, but we don't have to go buy them all, right? And you just have to start to open your mind to like, it is here. And the thing is if you don't have a good system in place, getting AI into your system, it's going to make it worse. So this is a great time for you to look at your system, say, where are we dropping the ball? Where could we fix our system and then have AI help us to make us more efficient so the humans on our team have more time to do the human things?
Yeah, totally agree. I think, finding the appropriate lane to leverage AI is super, super important as we approach this in dentistry. Just for the layman here, myself included, there's a lot of buzz, as you mentioned, around AI. It's really kind of taken the talking points from the trade show circuit all the way through to, vendors' booths about how are they leveraging this new technology. I think there's also a lot of confusion on what is AI, what's machine learning, where do all these different things kind of stack into each other? So maybe just help for our listeners explain, what is artificial intelligence? How would you define it? And then, by doing that, we can kind of disarm a lot of these false illusions that people have, like it's going to take my job and, we're all going to be controlled by robots sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe just start off with explaining the simplest manner, like what is AI for those that don't even know, they just hear it.
Yeah, it's definitely a buzzword. It's a lot of things that people don't understand. And I'm not techie, but I've done enough to get in there to make sure that I fully understand if I'm going to be teaching it. And like I said, AI, the word artificial intelligence, was coined in the 50s. So it's been around. The issue is up until this point, all of like the machine learning, the understanding how things work and programming it into the machine language, into the computers to do the things was all done by computer engineers, software engineers, people who understand that side of things. The reason we are hearing about AI now, the reason it's like all over everywhere, is because for the first time, this technology is in the hands of the everyday user. Anybody who basically can ask a question can use AI. And the reason is they call this a light bulb moment, which is basically like when electricity was invented. You know, we all have a general idea. I look up my light bulb. We all have a general idea of how the light bulb works. But until it got connected to the light switch, that's when we now have electricity. You turn on that switch, you know the light bulb works. If the light bulb doesn't work, you know to call the electrician or change the light bulb. That's how electricity works for us. So now electricity is in everybody's hands. That's the same with AI right now. And the biggest thing that's happened for those that know nothing about AI is two things. One is we needed computers big enough to hold the amount of data that AI needs in order to do the things that it's doing. And so we've gotten to the point where there's enough, and there's pros and cons on this. I'm not the one talking about environmental concerns and stuff, but we have computers big enough now to hold the data. And therefore, AI has basically read the internet, is the way I like to explain it. It has read every website, every travel blog, every dental article, anything on the internet. And so that is the first step of why AI is here right now. And then the second step is kind of the light switch analogy. It now can speak to us in human language. Like we can ask it questions and it responds. I don't need to know software. I don't need to know coding languages. I just need to how to ask a question and it's going to respond to my question. And so because it has all of the information basically off the internet and data, and we can communicate with it as humans, and you don't need to go to school or learn a coding language, that is why now we're hearing about artificial intelligence. One of the things that I suggest is AI is a buzzword, but really all it is technology. So for a lot of offices they're like, well, my patients aren't going to love AI or my team doesn't like AI. What I suggest is we just say we're using the latest technology, right? We're using the latest because that's all it is. It's just we now have access to it as the everyday, treatment coordinator, dentist, or human in the world who can now communicate with AI.
Yeah, I think, when I have conversations with thought leaders in this space, and, one of the things I hear quite consistently is it is a light bulb moment. It's one of those things that if you're entering the workforce and you're looking at a trade to learn, if AI has not been inserted into that trade from a really foundational level, not like here's a cool tool you can use to check your work, but fundamentally in the building of what you're doing, you shouldn't learn that trade. You should wait 5 years because in 5 years from now, we're going to rebuild all of our core workforce around having this personal sidekick. And how can we best leverage that to make sure, to your point, new technology, I'm going to steal your nomenclature there, is replacing busy work that we as humans aren't good at, don't feel fulfilled from, and is really just busy work. And really leveraging and empowering people, humans, to have those real conversations and to take this technology and implement what's good, and then you start doing what it's not good at. Because at the end of the day, I personally don't believe, at least not in my foreseeable future, that AI is going to be able to have that conversation with the patient, to explain the different treatment options, to understand the cost implications of each of these options, to share some of the pros and cons. Like, yeah, it could have the physical conversation, it can list off those benefits, but it still isn't a human. And people are social beings. We want that connection. And I think, to your point, really separating what is the human connection, what's the part of the job we all want to do. Okay, technology is not going to take that. It'll maybe make us better at that, but you're still going to be, saying hi to patients as they enter. You're still going to be going over their treatment plans or their bill or insurance information. You're still going to have your hands on every single patient, but now you have this sidekick that's, doing insurance verifications. It's doing, your recall list. It's doing, your voicemail follow-ups. And that's really how I want to encourage people to think about this, is like, what are practical ways in which I can do jobs I don't like doing and leverage this new technology to help me do it better.
If I can just add to that, one thing you said, because you asked me about it earlier, and then I just want to circle around for people listening. AI is not going to take our jobs. Like that, we agree on that. The one thing I will tell you though is if you're somebody who's crossing your arms and saying, "Well, I'm not doing AI. I'm not doing that new stuff." What's going to happen is AI is not going to take your job, but a year from now, somebody who uses AI versus you who doesn't, that person potentially will take your job, because if that person can do what it takes you to do an hour, if they can do in 5 minutes because they utilize AI, that's where the concern is. And so that's part of the reason that I'm really trying to get like, especially team members to be like open to this, because there will be a time that you would potentially get replaced, and it's not going to be by the robots. It's going to be by the person who knows how to use the AI in their role.
Yeah, I completely agree. The business world requires us to be more efficient. Dentistry is not limited by many things except for human time, provider time, production time, chair time, staff time. Everything is time limited. So any technology we can use to free up that time is going to be beneficial. The other thing I always think about is like you as a workforce, part of the workforce, you have two options. You either can specialize in your field of work or you can be commoditized in your field of work. And I do think some people who dig their heels in and say, I'm never learning this technology, I'm not going to utilize it, they might still have a job, but their job's going to get so commoditized down to you just pick up phones and you just explain A, B, and C. And you're going to do that all day long because the person who has more variety in their work, has more specialization in office management, is leveraging these technologies. And it's going to limit your trajectory or your growth career in these fields. And I think it's really important for people to acknowledge like, hey, if I'm just starting my career, I have to learn this. Now, if you're in the last 5 years of your career, you've been through 5 different practice management softwares over the 20 years, and you're really just looking to kind of ride off in the sunset with the doctor, by all means, I think this can be something that maybe you don't want to fully embrace, and you do, have earned the right to dig your heels in for the twilight of your career. But for those just getting in, I think this is mandatory. I think not only as part of the workforce, but as part of being a productive human. I really lean on AI for things like asking me questions that I wouldn't think of. So often I'll share what I'm thinking. I'll share my work with it. I'll say, what am I not thinking about? Why? How could I be wrong? And I find its ability to second guess you, its ability to identify what you don't even know, the unknown unknowns, which in business are the scariest, it is super helpful. And I think once you kind of leverage that asset, it's really hard to pull back, and it's almost impossible for someone who's not leveraging that technology to compete with you.
I have a story you made me think of. I speak on AI now. I travel around the country and speak, and I was at an event, and there was somebody in my audience who was probably in his 80s, and he's a retired dentist. He doesn't have a practice anymore. He was just there for like camaraderie, and maybe he volunteers, whatever. But in my session, I had everybody get their phones out, and we got ChatGPT out, and like 6 or 7 people in the audience had never used ChatGPT. They hadn't even downloaded it. And this dentist had heard about it, but never played with it. And so we got it out and we all picked something we were going to work on, and we worked on it with ChatGPT. And he came up to me afterwards and he said, I don't know that I'm going to use this a lot. He says, but you now I'm relatable to my grandchildren and my great grandchildren. I can have conversations about I've used it and I understand it. And so even bridging the gap a little bit, I mean, when we started talking to Alexa back in the day, I remember our patients aren't going to like this stuff. We're not going to text our patients. They're not going to talk. Now everybody talks to Alexa. Everybody gets a text, right? So I do think that even if you're in the golden years of your career, or like you were talking about, in life, I mean, just even thinking about medications you have to take, healthcare issues, legal issues. If you're going to sell your practice, there's just so many applications to using AI that could be helpful.
And I think 100% personally, I think even professionally, like giving you some real life examples. If I am an office manager or a receptionist and I want to be the office manager, maybe I'm at a small growing practice and there's only room for a receptionist today, but if you gain 1,000 more patients, now you need an office manager. Like I would take technology like AI, ChatGPT, and say, these are the core values. This is the mission statement of the office I work at. This is how the doctor fulfills that mission statement. This is my role. What are tangible activities or initiatives I could implement that would fulfill the vision and the mission of this office. And it will give you tangible, like literal examples of things you could do today to start impacting that outcome. And you can present that to your boss. Hey, if I had more time, if we got a receptionist here part-time to do the recalls and the hygiene and the treatment coordinating, I could now take these 5 initiatives. And our hypothesis is we're going to grow revenue by 25% because our brand's going to be more intentional. Things that you believe, like maybe it's evidence-based dentistry, is now going to be presented on our website. It's going to be presented in the office with our brochures. It's going to be presented in our follow-on messages on the phone. But like, you can now take something that someone believes, you see evidence of how they put that to practice, but maybe you're lost on how that translates to your role. ChatGPT is phenomenal at filling in some of those blanks. Now, I've personally seen benefit of like writing a strategy document, and I go, okay, I need to present this to my product team. What are questions they're going to have for me? How do I format this in a way that they're going to get the most value of this information? And it reorganizes it, asks me some more questions, it refines it, and then it gives you a 1-page PDF that, there's no going back once you start it. And I do think for some people, just as one last before I let you jump in there, is like, you also need to know its capabilities and not take it too far. So I find, ChatGPT is great once you've done some work and you want verified, validated, questioned, challenged, and then you have a clear endpoint. If you start carrying on your ChatGPT conversations for weeks or months, or you start to change the conversation from, what are initiatives I'm going to implement based off the strategy to how should I write this in my website, it starts to get a little bit worse. So I do caution people to really proof their work and make sure it is doing what you expect it to do. But creating practical examples based off other information, there's no better tool I've ever encountered.
Yeah, what I was going to say is you could flip that script. And for the dentist also, if the dentist is like, I have a receptionist that I really want to grow into an office manager, or she wants the office manager role, but I'm not sure what I expect out of her. Like, you could use it on both sides of the example there. The other thing I would say is, and this isn't a ChatGPT teaching thing, but the one thing I would say too is within any one of the tools, like you can use multiple tools, but when you really get to know the tools, like having a conversation in different open chats within ChatGPT, like don't talk about your recipes in the same chat that you're talking about your dental practice. Also, you can have folders in there and you can feed it content that you want it to refer to. So if you like a certain consultant or a certain websites or whatever, you can give it resources to say, guide me based off of this. So you really can set the tool up. One of the things that I like to think of it is like an assistant. If you had a new assistant that was going to work for you, and if you said, hey, I need you to go get me lunch. Well, if the assistant brought you back hamburgers and you're like, well, I'm a vegetarian, how is the assistant supposed to know you're a vegetarian? So now the next time your new assistant, you would say, I'm a vegetarian. I don't eat meat. I like this kind of. So that's the same with ChatGPT. Like, it's only going to give you the limited amount of information that you've given it. So the more you can give it to guide it, the better it's going to be to serve you in any AI, not just ChatGPT.
It's also a people pleaser. So it's actually designed to want to answer the question. Even if you don't give it enough information, it will try to fill in gaps that it thinks are reasonable or things that other people would have thought. It is a people pleaser, and that's why you do need to check it. You need to review it because sometimes it's going to miss a key piece of information, fill in a blank, and give you completely the wrong result that you're expecting.
2 pieces of advice. Good to bring this up. One, I'm just going to say, always ask for a source because it will hallucinate. It'll make things up. So if you really want to know where it's pulling it from, ask for a source. And then the second thing is your team members are getting advice on AI also. So make sure you're going over with your team members' policies on privacy, HIPAA, because what we don't want is our team members copying and pasting information about our patients or your practice, your P&Ls, all of that into ChatGPT unless they understand. I mean, we want to make sure everything's private. So whatever you do within an AI tool, whichever one you use, it's basically like putting it on the internet. So you just want to make sure that you're being very secure with your information.
I mean, all you need to do is type in one of the books you've written and ask for a summary, and whether it's sensitive information or not sensitive, it treats it the same. It will store it, it will repeat it. Nothing is safe, nothing is protected on AI unless you've physically taken that LLM and you've hosted it yourself, and I'm sure B2B providers like ourselves are doing that, but just to caution the person that's going on ChatGPT, I mean, that's not protected. Anything there, you just assume that your competitors or the guy down the street is looking at it. Um, because it's an information architecture. It's smarter the more information you feed it. So it wants to leverage that information to other queries and other people. And it has every ability to do so. And that's why, you know, someone told me this about Google. The difference between Google and Apple is Apple, you pay a lot of money, outrageous fees, but you're the customer. Google, the advertising is the customer. And ChatGPT is kind of the same way. If you're not paying them, you're not the customer. So how are they getting their money? And that doesn't mean you can't take advantage of it. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't share information, but just be aware. If they're not getting money from you, they're getting it from what you're doing. And, you want to be super aware of what you're feeding it. And I would certainly 100% never put any PHI, no patient data, but even, who your referring offices are. Probably wouldn't throw the list of names and their contact informations into there. I wouldn't, you want to use some common sense with this.
Yeah, for sure. And when I'm guiding, because it is really good, like you said, it's good for organization, organizing things, checklists and all that. It's good for brainstorming. And even with teams, like if let's just say I'm having an issue with an employee in my practice and I really need some guidance on it, or a coworker or something, I'm not going to put their name. I'm just going to say, I have a coworker who I work with at a dental office and we are not seeing eye to eye, guide me through, because just like you wouldn't want to put on the internet, I would just be careful of what you put into ChatGPT or any other AI tools that you use.
Yeah. So you wrote the book on AI in dentistry, brushing up on AI to help dental teams navigate the shift. What are some practical approaches that you are supporting teams with, and what are you seeing people get stuck on versus what's actually working?
I think that one of the things that it's really important right now is to start the discussion with your team. So if you're a dentist or an office manager, having the discussion and starting to look for places right now that AI can help. When we can, change is hard for anybody. And so the big thing about this is like, oh, this feels like change. I don't like change. Well, when you can actually see little things that we just talked about, like help me write a job description, write my meeting note outline, help me figure out a team building exercise, make a checklist to train the new employee. When you can see that it can do these things for you for free, like this, you're a little bit more open to, okay, I can see how this technology can support us. And when the team can see and can get involved with this and become more efficient with it, in their jobs, now they're going to be a little bit more willing to embrace other AI that we're seeing in our industry, looking at radiographs, helping answer phones, all of the things. The other thing I talk about in there is that as an industry, we are addicted to running behind. We have always been busy. We've always never had enough time. No matter what dental office you work in, your team members just never have enough time. And one of the scary things about AI, besides it being a new technology and all of that, is when I become efficient, what happens to me? Like, because I don't know, as a team member in a dental office, I don't know what efficiency looks like because I've never had it. So we need to start these conversations with our team members to say, when we have this efficiency, when we give AI the busy work, what can we work on to make your job more human? And that's scary for a lot of especially our younger generation employees coming in. Like the human side of things are the soft skills, like you said, talking to patients about their treatment plan presentation, holding their hand when they're scared, having conversations with our patients. Some of our employees they're way more comfortable doing the busy work than they are the human side of things. And so that's where I think the discussions need to start right now with our teams as a team to say, where can we become more efficient? Where can we get more time back in our day? And then what are some of the other things that we should be training on, the soft skills? And then what does that look like? It looks like we're going to have our team meetings like we're supposed to. We're going to go to lunch on time. You get to go to your kid's soccer game at nighttime. Like there's a future where we are efficient, but there's a bridge between now and then. And the book kind of starts to bridge those conversations, as well as how to use LLMs, how to use ChatGPT and all of that, how to bring it to your team. But the conversations need to start now, for sure.
one of the things that Dale Carnegie talks about, Win Friends and Influence People, is, you know, the way you can lead people, or the way people want to be led, is to have them to aspire to higher thinking, higher values, higher ideals. And when I think we talk about AI, often, definitely the media narrative goes through, they're taking our jobs. This is all about profitability. This is, capitalism at its finest. And those things may be true, but they're not motivating. They're certainly not motivating to your team members. What we try to do when we talk about any technology is we frame around the conversation of what would 11-star patient experience look like? And you have people explain, it's like, oh, you know what it would be? It would be every single patient, we open the door and we greet them as they enter. Every patient, we offer them, chauffeuring their car to their park, valeting their car. Every patient, we do X, Y, and Z. And, so often we're limited, to your point, by time in doing these things. It's not because we don't think they're important. It's not because we don't think the patient would value them. It's we just don't have the time. We're already running around. We're already, showing up late and having all these challenges. But what you do is you say, okay, now what would have to be true? I would have to not spend so much time doing my recalls. I would have to not spend so much time following up on AR. I would have to have better relationships with my referring doctors to make sure there's not so much relationship building and phone calls happening there. And then you go, okay, well, what can I do to stop those things? And that's where technology should come in. But you should always be aspiring. Like, we're not using AI so the doctor can buy, a Ferrari instead of a Maserati next year. We're using AI so we can open the door for our patient as they enter. And when you kind of frame it like, hey, if we don't use this technology, we'll never be opening up the door when they enter. And when the patient walks up to the front desk when they enter, we're always going to give them the 1 second because we're still on the phone. And when the doctor is notified the patient shows up, we're always going to be running back the message, sorry, you got to wait 10 minutes, we're running behind. And you kind of have to face the facts of, if we always do what we're always done, we're always going to get what we always got. And that's another Dale Carnegie quote. And I think those are often the moments where you can start introducing these technologies. You start introducing them as like, we're not doing this. We do believe it's going to generate more revenue. We do believe we can now, have bonuses. We can have, all the staff reaping the rewards of this new efficiency. But most importantly, it's because we think it serves our customer better. We think our patients will feel more at ease and we feel more cared for because we've delegated some of this busy work to something else. And I think that's how you got to frame the conversation. It's like, what can we not do because we're stuck in our old ways? And what new technology is available for us to, take advantage of it?
Right. And I'm going to add to that too, is for your team members, is also what's in it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, your team members were all individual. Like, it means I have to learn something new, or I have to change a system, or I have to get uncomfortable, or I have to be transparent, or what. So what's in it for me? And so individually, by asking each employee, if you could have a half an hour back in your day, what does that look like for you? And let them, because it all sounds good, like the Disney experience, the Ritz-Carlton experience. Great, that's amazing, and I love it. I've never even thought about valeting their cars. I'm like, that's an amazing idea, right? But also, what's in it for me? If it means that I actually can work in an environment where we can have hard conversations because AI helps to guide us, if it means that I don't have to call insurance for 6 hours a day, if it means I can go to lunch and actually sit and have lunch. So really bringing it down to the human level, I think, is important too, because they definitely, it's change. And we're all going to be changing at one time, which is hard on a business. So I do see a future where in the future, AI is going to connect all the parts of the dental office. So we're going to have, like at Mango, we have Margot answer the phones, and then there's going to be a scheduling AI and a scribe AI and a perio AI, and in the hygiene department, we'll have AI. We're all going to have this connected. So we're going to be able to offer better customer service and patient care to our patients. And then the humans are going to have more chance to do the human side of things, which I just can't wait for that future, because that is really where we're going to make the biggest impact for our patients and for our practices.
So out of curiosity, how do Rockstar teams handle upset patients or last minute rescheduling chaos in a way that doesn't, burn everyone out and actually builds trust across their colleagues?
So the biggest thing that's missing in dental offices is training around this subject. We don't train our team members well at how to have these hard conversations. The patient that runs late, or patient doesn't want to pay their bill. These difficult discussions, and we don't have systems or rules in place. So an example is a patient that runs late, right? If our team member is afraid to have a conversation with the patient to be like, hey, you know what? This is the third time you've come late to this appointment. In the future, I need you to show up. If they're too afraid to say that, then the patient's not going to know the rules of the game of being a patient in our practice. But then also, what are the rules of the game for the practice? So for example, your practice, you might see a patient that's 15 minutes late. And in my practice, if they're 5 minutes late, we won't see them. It doesn't matter what you do versus what I do, but what does matter is everybody on the team has the same rules. So any areas of your practice that's not really running well or could be improved, the first step is getting everybody on the same page. How are we going to do this, right? And a lot of times there's a lot of team meetings where somebody talks and everybody shakes their head and then they go back to work and nothing changes. So we really need to get everybody on the same playbook in the practice. And then we need to help our teams and our employees be comfortable with the conversation, which means we've got to role play, we've got to practice, we've got to know how to do these conversations because, like I said, we have a lot of people coming into our practice that technically they know how to work in a dental office, but they don't know how to have those conversations. And some of our patients can be very intimidating. Some of the size of treatment plans can be more than anybody's talked about with money before. And we just expect that our team members are going to know. A good example of this is answering phones. When I hire people, you ask people, do you know how to answer the phone? And they say yes. Well, technically, they know how to answer a phone. They don't know how to answer the dental phone, and they don't know how to answer the dental office phone for your office. That's a whole different animal, and they can be taught, but we just assume we're like, oh, that person's no good on the phones. Well, did you teach them? Right? They're no good. Customer service for me is a big red flag because the word customer service is vague. What is customer service? For you, it's going to be valeting their cars. For me, it's going to be like high-fiving them and welcoming them to the practice. Like, it depends on your practice. So really defining what customer service is, what the rules are, is the first step. And then training your team to them and holding them accountable is the next.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, I'm a big sports fan. My rugby coach in high school always said practice makes permanent. Doesn't make perfect, it makes permanent. And if you practice the wrong way, you'll do it the wrong way. You practice the right way, you'll do it the right way. And I think to your point, role playing it seems silly. It seems like, a dental office, I'm going to role play with the doctor or the office manager on a patient call. Like, this seems absurd. Like, just pick up the phone, like you said. But it's like, no, these things actually matter. Having a background in sales, how you ask a question, whether you use open-ended or closed-ended questions, makes a difference in how someone responds, how you greet them, how you say, does Tuesday work for you at 8 a.m.? You're going to get a much different response and less likely to agree than say, is Tuesday at 8 a.m. or Wednesday at 9 a.m. better for you?
Right.
Giving someone an option, you'll get more of an affirmative than saying yes or no. There is a right way, a best practice to take on some of these interpersonal skills. And unless we're practicing, unless we're repeating them, the mental memory is not being formed and we're not going to be able to have them on the fly in a consistent, repeatable manner.
This is mic drop for you. You're the first one to hear about this, okay? But I am working on right now a phone training program where up to this point, we used to do mystery calls in the dental offices. How do they do on that? And that feels like you're like spying on them. I don't know, right? And I feel like as humans, we're going to be more likely to go to AI and ask dumb questions, right? I'm going to go to AI and be like, what is a P&L, right? And I'll ask AI before I'll ask another human. So we actually have AI role playing now, which is another great way for AI because I can role play phone calls now with AI that I couldn't do before. I'm not going to do it. So if I'm a new receptionist and I really want to please the doctor and I'm like, I want to do really good, I'm not going to turn to the other receptionist and go, can we role play that? Like, people don't like role playing, but I am more likely to talk to an AI robot, as you will, AI patient, and practice my skills until they get better. So here's another like cutting edge way that we can use AI right now. If you're about to have a hard conversation with a patient or coworker, you can role play it. You can get, like you said, ask for pushback from AI so you know how to handle them. Like this is the cutting edge of how we can get better as humans using AI.
Yeah, just to kind of summarize some of the things we talked about, I think that's important because we've talked about so much. And I think first and foremost, as an organization, before you do anything AI, you need to create a clear user manual or, clear guidelines at your office. This is the information that's included, not included. There needs to be clear training on all your staff. At the end of the day, new technology does not skirt your responsibility for, protecting PHI. So I think that needs to be repeated about 1,000 times. The second thing I think we're hearing here is this is a tool. You got to find tools that are going to make us better subject matter experts over our roles, and making sure that everyone has the opportunity to have an AI agent to, at the very least, ask questions, at the very least, to role play, whether it be interpersonal skills in the office or with patients. Getting that practice is really what's going to make us perform optimally. And I think the third one, to me at least, is having that daily huddle. Every day as a team coming together at a company, we do it. Every single team meets and we meet for 15 minutes. We talk about what's the good news of the day, personally, professionally. What was my biggest priority? What did I try to achieve yesterday? So if this is production staff, it's likely going to be how much production I made. What was my booking completion rate? What's my confirmation rate maybe for my tomorrow's appointments? And then everyone should also have what the priority for today is. And to really be able to share that is going to help build this kind of culture of people that are aligned on a task, but specialized in their impact. And that's really what ChatGPT does. It allows us to focus our time and our largest resource into the highest impact activities possible. Now, before we wrap up, maybe you could just share for the dentist that's just wondering, like, what are the metrics that they should be tracking and what are the improvements in those metrics they should see if they're leveraging AI? So a great example would be today, 50 patients call me a week to book their new patient exam. Only 25 of them actually book that appointment. If I was using AI coaching, if I was doing training, if I was leveraging, I think you said it was Marge is Mango's platform, like, what would I expect to see? Would I expect to see 75% conversion, so a 50% increase? Would I expect a 10% increase? Like, what are some of these KPIs that doctors should be, really tracking? And then what would you expect them to be if you're using AI? Is that a question you think you could answer or help?
That's a big question right there. So I initially, when you started asking that, all your KPIs should improve. So anytime you implement a new piece of technology or a new system or a new whatever, the biggest thing is to track how it's doing, because not everything we implement works. And then we need to go back to the way it was before. So just even looking at KPIs, what you put your attention on should improve, right? So kind of back to where you and I started, like, let's figure out where we're dropping the ball. Let's figure out areas that could use some help. Let's figure out what that KPI is. Now let's implement some of the AI, whatever it is. So for example, we had yesterday, we have Margot who answers the phones, overflow nights and weekends for dental offices. So we're not replacing the human just when they're not answering the phone. And this doctor called and wanted to talk about his statistics. And he was saying, I don't know if Margot's really helping or not. Well, we looked at his numbers. Their office is missing over 55% of their phone calls. Margot is helping because she's catching the calls. 75% of the patients who talked to Margot and left a voicemail message, like talked to Margot, gave their message and their intent of the call. So they're missing over 55% of their calls. This is something where the ball's dropping and the metrics going up. Now we need to figure out, why are they missing 55% of their calls, right? We're not looking to try to get rid of the front desk, but these are numbers now that he actually is well more aware of what's going on with his phones in the front desk. We can see the type of calls that they're missing. We can see when the calls are missing. So it's really about using the technology in the area to help improve the metrics. Another one is AI with radiographs, right? Like, is it case acceptance we're trying to improve? How is your case acceptance with the x-rays, with AI, without? But the KPI itself doesn't change with AI. It's just how does the AI, knowing where your number was before versus where it's going after you implement AI. There's a lot of people who have AI for radiographs, and I get told all the time, it doesn't work in my practice. It works. Your team hasn't embraced it, right? They're not using it. And then that's a different issue, right? It's not the AI, it's the team and it's the training. And so really looking at the true KPI of the thing you're trying to improve and then seeing how it's doing with AI.
I also think, we all believe the stories we tell ourselves in our head. And often before AI, you actually have no visibility. Ignorance is bliss. At the end of the day, if you and your brain think, I have 50 calls and 75% of them are booking their first patient exam and they're completing that appointment, when you implement AI and you find out it's 50%, you actually think it's gotten worse. And it's like, no, you actually just buried your head in the sand for the last 10 years, thinking it's something. And now you're actually just seeing what it really is. And I think that is so often the thing. It's like, oh, it's not AI. It's the fact that I just was completely wrong. And I was, marching along on wrong assumptions, which is
Exactly.
always interesting.
Yep, exactly. And that's where you can't use AI to solve all your problems. If you plugged AI across your practice, you would blow your practice up. Like, don't do that. Just where is the area that you want to focus? And then how can we improve that? But now, how can we improve it with technology? And like I said earlier, if that area of your practice, if the systems aren't working, so like in this case, they're missing 55% of their phone calls, that's a problem. Let's figure out why we're missing 55% of the phone calls. AI is the overflow solution in this instance, but I also want to fix that issue, right? Because whatever you put into AI, it's kind of like putting it into software. Crap in is crap out, right? You're going to get you get a metric software. Whatever you put in, you're going to get bad numbers on the way out. It's same with AI. It's only going to give you, just like we said, it's going to give you the prompt of whatever it's supposed to do and try to please you. And ultimately, if your system's broken, we got to fix the system to improve the number.
There is so much here for our listeners. I would love to have you back on and dive into this further because there's just so much to talk here and it's evolving. In 6 months, we'll have a bunch of new exciting things to chat
For
through.
sure.
I mentioned earlier at the beginning, you obviously have written quite a few books. I definitely recommend our listeners to pick them up and to give them a listen, especially as an introductory into AI, into practice efficiency. How else can our listeners get in touch with you?
So Brush Up on AI is my book, and I have a group on Facebook called Brush Up on AI. So if you want to just come over and geek out on AI with me, you can join into that group. I post stuff all the time. I speak at all different conferences. My website is Laura Nelson Speaks, and I'm part of Front Office Rocks still. That is, I speak on behalf of Front Office Rocks and with Mingo Voice. So pretty much you can't get away from me. Just search anything AI and Laura, and I'm probably going to come up in one of your search things. Hopefully, I should check ChatGPT to see where I come up on there.
Well, thank you so much, Laura, for your time. It's been a real pleasure to have this conversation. I love, pulling back the covers on some of these scary terms or these unknown terms. And I think you've done a great job shedding some light and building confidence in how we can take that first step together for our industry. So thank you so much to all of our listeners. Thank you to Laura. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And that caps us off for now. Thank you for listening to the Patient Experience Blueprint. I'm your host, Joshua DeVries. Thank you again to Laura for joining us today and look forward to hearing from you soon. Bye for now.